Yeah, films. Yeah, films. We watched some films. Now let's talk about those films.
I like to call this section, Gabe, shut up. Just write a book already. We're talking about Alice in Borderland from 2020. It is about a group of bored delinquents are transported to a parallel wasteland as part of a survival game, and it's directed by Shinsuke Sato and based on the manga that was written by Haro Aso. And I'm really pumped. I want to read this manga. My partner has, and has confirmed it's great. And it's kind of, they're pretty true to each other. So here's hoping. And I'm like ready to dedicate myself to that. Like put all my other many things that I read on hold. Things I can't tell people that I read in public. So let's hop in. So I'll go over the synopsis and then kind of break down into some of the things that I think are being explored in this piece. So get ready to be educated. You're welcome. So the story follows Arasu, Karube, and Shota, who are best friends, and according to the on-screen text, NEETs, N-E-E-Ts, which are not in education, employment, or training. So presumably nothing people. Arasu is a gamer, and it seems like his family is disappointed in him. This is all like within the first moments of meeting him. Karube is a mischievous and wild bartender, lives on the wild side. That's who I'm dressed as, if people are wondering why I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And
living more untraditionally, as they
yes,
would say.
yeah, more untraditionally, like free spirit, loving
society don't own
people
me.
and stuff. And then Shota, who is a salaryman, who's really just trying to abide by society's expectation, doing what he thinks is the thing you're supposed to do for society to accept you, at the expense of his own happiness. So they're all just sad best friends who are trying to enjoy the life that they have.
That's relatable as hell.
It's like, yeah, that's me.
We're all just sad.
We're all sad best friends trying to make it to the next
to
day.
live tomorrow.
Well, these sad best friends meet to hang out in the city, and they, through their actions and fun, end up hiding out in a building from police officers. And while they're in that building, the power goes out. And they're making childish jokes about like farts or something. Like they're being really just young boys. But when they emerge from the building, all of the people are gone.
Yep.
And it's a stark contrast to the busy Shibuya crossing that is notorious for its overcrowding. Like, it is well known for having way too many people. And just before they enter this building, it was crawling with people. Now, everyone's gone. And it's haunting and unsettling to see this desolate space. And these boys, like, immediately split up, and they're like, we gotta go find somebody. What's going on?
Yeah, like, where people be?
And then this is one of the parts where I'd argue, like, the scene would probably be a bit more unsettling if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic when it came out, because empty, desolate streets were kind of a norm in 2020.
Yeah.
We had all those tweets.
Maybe it
like,
helped with filming, less people that have to be like, don't come here.
No, because they would have made it before.
That's fair.
2020. They didn't know the pandemic was going to happen. They just got lucky. But so I think like people probably don't do it. But it is unsettling, and the kids don't find anybody. And they come to this realization that everyone just up and vanished instantly, just gone. And you're like, what? Is this real? Like, are we all having a collective nightmare? Is that possible? And then a giant monitor on the face of the building flashes the words, "Welcome, players. The game will commence shortly." And immediately I'd be like, no, the game will not commence shortly. We have to go. So through all this, they end up participating in a game. It's a hellish puzzle where each room features 2 doors. One is marked live, and the other is marked death. Like, they just end up in this building with these other players. And at first, they don't really know what's going on. They think it's a joke until one of the participants runs through a door just willy-nilly and is just dead. Viciously, gratuitously. And you're just like, oh, it's one of these kinds of games. And then it gets really real, like immediately. And I don't know how this game was supposed to be solved. It's not even, I don't even think it was a logic-based puzzle, but it got solved because Arsu figures out the building's dimensions because he saw a car outside and knew its dimensions, so he quickly calculates his way out of the maze.
Yeah.
He's like, I know how big the building... Like, sir, how else was anyone else supposed to do? They're just supposed to whittle down their numbers as people
video
just
game real good, so now good at this.
But not even... It doesn't even, like, a logic... I don't understand. Anyway, I don't understand puzzles in the apocalypse. Ever. And if you want to hear my rants on why I wouldn't do them, you can listen to our Squid Game episode because I tell you all about it. I'm not here for it. I'm not doing it. Not making me solve a Rubik's Cube with a gun to my head. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. It's like, will you do better in this horrific and traumatic scenario? Probably not.
No.
Like, even people who are good at those things, with the threat of imminent death, I feel like you immediately become bad at them.
My brain's like I play puzzle games and I enjoy them because I don't like action games that much, but I rage quit a few times before I ever get to it. And oftentimes I'm looking up the guidebook. I'm like, I turned the statue 3 times. I read the poem. I don't understand. So there's no way. There's no way. I'm not figuring out the dimensions of the fort outside so that I can figure out how. No. That's not happening.
Where the doors go.
I would have been dead now.
Fake fire escape. What? How? How no?
He would be like, it's this way. I'd be like, okay.
Yeah. And the friends being like, all right, I guess. These are the chances. He's kind of going to go with it.
You got it, sir. Right away. Point me in. You want me to go first? All right. Listen, at this point, this is
the worst thing is I'm just not here no more. And that already sounds better.
And then I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
I never have to do this again. That sounds dope. Like, thank you.
The existential dread that our specific generation has, I think, would lend us very well to this game. Only because we'd be like, it's either way, I get to leave. So
I just get to not be here anymore. I don't have to play a stupid game. Yeah, love it.
Dope.
Anyway, they survive because he's Rain Man all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So they survive, and they learn upon completion that players are given a visa, which allows them to live and not be murdered by a sky laser for a few more days. Because that's what happens. You get murdered by a sky laser when your visa's up. It's just like zoop from up there, and now you're dead. So
seems like a waste of technology.
The
things we could solve with the money used for sky lasers.
Oh, okay. I just thought you were like, let's laser our way to peace. So I was like, we have those. It's called drone strikes. It's a problem, Kat.
No, don't say
problems with sky lasers. We do not endorse any of that here.
Gosh.
Anyway, as their visas are set to expire, they must seek out more games to gain more time. So it's like, you get a set number of days because you survived this game, and now you got to play more because you'll die at the end of your visa. So you have to just keep re-upping your visa.
Yeah. It seems like the opposite way you'd want it to go.
It's such a nightmare. The games are rated by difficulty with playing cards, which represent that difficulty. So lower number cards are easier and can be completed easiest. But then but the thing is, they result in lower number of visa time.
Yeah.
So you get like 3 days or something. Higher number cards are more difficult and will give you more visa time, while face cards are just sinister. They're just chaos, and like no one is gonna love it at the end.
And they aren't available till the end, which is like interesting. Or it seemed that way. I don't know if that's
like they're just like, who knows what's going on. It's very scary. The suits of the cards also give you a hint as to what kind of game you'll be playing. And this is something that you kind of learn as time goes on and you interact with players who've been in the game for longer. Clubs are games of balance and collaboration. So multiple people can survive if they work together with clubs.
Nice.
Spades are games of physical strength, and you won't catch me in one of those.
Yeah, damn, that's crazy.
Like, no, you want me to scale a building? That's not happening. You want me to run fast? You want me to run, period?
Run, period.
Is something chasing me? Because I'm not.
Asthma. Done.
Yeah, not happening. But I guess it really depends with physical strength. Anyway, because, we learned about tug of war.
Yeah.
Game.
You can smarts it.
Yeah, you have a strategy. Diamonds are games of intelligence, and the higher the diamond number tends to only have one winner. So, yeah.
That's sad.
And lastly, hearts are games of psychology. And according to the Alice in Borderland wiki, it says rules of many hearts games can also tend to mislead the players into believing that it requires sacrificing other players to claim victory, but would otherwise be unnecessary if all participants could calmly deduce the true nature of each hearts game. In fact, it is possible to complete all hearts games, obviously except for the face cards, without having to kill a single person. And the hearts are the most vicious and difficult games to play, and result in the most heartbreaking of episodes. They really, psychology that's kind of like what all the other, murder games are trying to be. It's psychology wrapped up in all the other things. Whereas, clubs, you'd be like, let's be friends, let's team up. Unlike Squid Game, this is a strictly play-to-survive scenario. There is no promise of money. In fact, we don't get much in the way of answers for why any of this is happening. Yeah. The show is exciting and stressful as you're trying to solve the puzzles along with the protagonist, and it's heartbreaking in a different way than Squid Game. In those murder games, there can only be one winner. In Borderland, there's no real expectation or rules, no, end game in sight, right? When you're playing those individual games, you have somewhat of an idea of what to expect, but even still, they're just those are just maybe how it works, and then they spin it around. So when characters die, sometimes completely unexpectedly, because you don't know what the rules are yet, and we just got here, it leaves the audience incredibly vulnerable and uncertain. You're trying to figure it out, and the world has its own rules, and it's not adding up. Whereas at least with Squid Game, we have a face to the bad guys.
Yeah.
You don't get that in this. So like most apocalypse horror narratives, the how and why of the apocalypse is less important. Sure, there are murder games and people are fighting to survive, but it's more of an exploration of morality, which is what our show is about. When our everyday rules and societal obligations are removed, what do we become? The games pit players against each other, either inherently through the rules or simply in using our survival instincts, where we, like those hearts games, if you're not thinking and working together, you might end up kind of crawling over each other to get to the top.
Yeah.
Or hurting people that you love. And each game forces the players to consider what they would do to survive, who they would sacrifice, and each time they're sacrificing a bit of their own humanity just for a few extra days of life. Literally, that's it. So I'm going to jump into some spoiler central to talk about some of the characters and the overall themes of the show. So please go ahead and watch it. It's pretty short.
Yeah, it's only 8 episodes.
Yeah, which is crazy for any type of show on the internet. But it's enthralling. You'll get through it pretty quickly because you'll want to know. And then you'll be like, where's season 2? Because that's where I'm at. I'm like, I want to know. But also, I'm okay. I'm okay waiting. So this section is called What the Apocalypse Reveals About Who You Really Are. So the show, through character flashbacks and specific focus, becomes a character study. We get to learn who these people were in the normal world and see how that affects who they become in this new apocalypse world. For example, the character known as Last Boss, his name is Takatora Samura, is a member of this militia group of villains who are terrorizing people. He wields a sword and he has tattoos everywhere, and he's an overall bad dude. He's just not good news. Bad news bears all through it. And through flashbacks, we learn that Samura is also a NEET. Not employed or educated or whatever. He was obsessed in his like normal life. He was like this loner who was obsessed with explorers and like men that accomplished things.
Yeah.
Like important, what he deemed was important. And in this world, Samura was able to become a new man, one with power, and one that he thought was pretty cool. He was like, to me, like what if you like put a young boy into a video game world where he can be an adult body, this is what he would look like.
Yeah.
It was a very immature like progression for him. But according to an article on Cinemascapist titled Review, Netflix Alice in Borderland uses sci-fi to highlight Japanese NEET's Woes by Xingting Gong. These character developments are a glimpse into some of the complicated societal strains on millennials in Japan, specifically. Gong says, how each character's past informs their decision and persona in this new world adds another layer of complexity. In this alternate free-for-all reality, does the worst or best of ourselves come to the foray? Though the point above is quite general, there are certain quirks to the colorful characters in the show that strike one as being unique to Japan. Despite being a first-world country, Japan ranks notably low amongst developed nations and progressive ideologies. A consistently stagnant economy and high-strung working culture place undue stress on Japanese youth. Gender inequality remains a significant issue, with more and more modern Japanese women rejecting marriage altogether. In addition, an incredibly strong collectivist mentality, in tandem with the rise of neoconservatism in Japan, has led to a country that resists the kind of cultural modernization taking roots in other nations across the globe. So, all that to say, there are like clear influences to society's expectations of young people and how they're supposed to conform to society and how they're not able to actually flourish, that makes this kind of immature image that he had of like what is a cool like apocalypse villain is like it makes sense like why he would think that, like, and why he valued that image overall. And in this article, Gong also goes on to explain the last boss's motivations and need to be special even further, saying Takatora Samura, for example, exemplifies the modern-day hermit in Japan. Defined as someone who experiences physical isolation, social avoidance, and psychological distress that lasts 6 months or longer. A recluse who lives in a dark room and spends all his time writing blog entries with zero viewership. Samura discovers a sense of liberation and purpose in the morally depraved borderland. Japanese collectivist mentality has made it particularly susceptible to hermits, such as Samura, who lack an outlet for individualism. In Japanese, there's a very famous saying, a protruding nail will be hammered down, which was explained by a professor that Kat actually talks about in our tag episode. Nice. Just like the whole pressure of conformity and to fit what is expected of you. And anyone who doesn't fit the bill is put back in line promptly. So he, like, this is the only chance he would have ever gotten to be free and himself was in a world where there are no rules and it's chaos and anarchy. And so it's like you can't even like blame him, even though he's like awful. And in a place ranked as having the gloomiest millennials, Japan. This is according to several sources. I found a few things about it. It's a question
funny,
of
it's sad, but
it's
just like,
and when you're like reading that stuff about like the pressures and the inequality and all that, it like makes a lot of sense. Like can relate. Hashtag can relate. It's a question of what the show wants us to get out of this new freedom. What does it want us to learn? And when the characters are offered this alternate world where they can become whoever they want, when the rules and expectations that were suffocating and oppressive are removed, and when you can murder people to survive another day against a sky laser, is the message, be careful what you wish for. And will you like the person that you see in the mirror when it's all said and done? It's kind of just like revealing what you're really wanting and realizing like you shouldn't want those things, but we do.
I feel like there's a scenario though where you're not in this world and can still not be a person who has to conform to the laws of society in such a way. Like I feel like this is a very drastic alternative. That ultimately, like, I don't think at any point allows you to live a life that like you otherwise like for freedom, because you have 3 days.
Yeah.
You got murder to do tomorrow.
Not always. They don't always murder. Sometimes they get murdered. They were murdering people all the time.
I know, but like, even if you don't directly murder, you are witnessing murder, or inadvertently through not protecting certain people, allowing their murder, or just through luck.
Yeah.
Murder is taking place. So I don't know. I just feel like there's not a lot of freedom in that world. I think there's like, what other choice is there but to be blech?
Yeah.
I don't
Well, it
know.
also says something about like the kind of person who thrives in a society like that.
Yeah.
Like if you find power in that place and get to be who you couldn't be, like then maybe you shouldn't be who you thought you were supposed to be. Like maybe you're a problem. You know? In an essay by Brendan Mackey titled Meritocracy and Battle Royale, Mackey explains this power that comes from murder games like Battle Royale and ultimately Alice in Borderland. To Mackey, these games are the answer to our feelings of ineptitude. As Kat described in our Squid Game episode, millennials are a generation of people who were told if they worked hard, they'd get anything they desired. And what we were met with after that hard work was a crumbling economy and anxiety. Lots of anxiety of all kinds. And we were deceived and lied to, and quickly learned the game of society is incredibly skewed in favor of the 1% who profit off of that said hard work while we fight for scraps. So games like Battle Royale and those found in Alice in Borderland strip us of society's limitations, rules, and expectations and allow us the actual chance to succeed, even if it's for really nothing. It's for scraps anyway.
I feel like this specific scenario is different than standard Battle Royale, but it's fine.
Yeah, which I kind of defer. There's okay. But Mackey says Battle Royale games are the stories kids tell themselves about this culture of cutthroat competition. Just like the real world in Battle Royale games, only the 1% win. But these games are a fantasy in which this unequal outcome is produced transparently and equitably, albeit violently. A fairy tale about how the meritocracy should really work. Though it is tough, brittle, and difficult, it is fair, and though you have only a small chance of winning, the forces that oppress you are not unseen. They are clear and distinct. The decks are not stacked. Everyone has the same health, the same armor, the same access to weapons and upgrades. You'll probably die, but you will live and die on your skills alone. The problem here is that we still don't win in Borderland, and we still don't have control. Like there's an illusion of control, and we are equal, right? Like the strength that we have is whatever we brought in with us, and later I'll explain like also your will to live is an object of strength as well. But there is a forced achievement here, and someone else is always pulling the strings, and they win by making you participate, period. Like the fact that you're doing it, like you've already lost. But Mackey further explains that in an article titled Battle Royale from Dystopian Thriller to Cult Classic on Unseen Japan, the author ties Japan's history with our generation's disappointment with society. So there's a lot happening here. We're just like Battle Royale equals we're really sad. So Lisa Pearl Fusick has argued that Battle Royale is a commentary on Japan's lost decade, a time when the invisible compact between generations was breaking down. The life of a middle-class Japanese citizen was supposed to be a hard, rewarding climb up the ladder of success, from a good college to a good job at a big firm. But in 2000, after a decade of economic stagnation, the salaryman jobs that had once promised a lifetime of reliable employment were dwindling. The competition, however, the endless slog of studying and striving, was still there. The battle in Battle Royale is a bloody, explicit enactment of this grinding, near-pointless competition. It's another way that we're trying to find some form of achievement, and it's not there.
Yeah, it's false.
Yes. And the struggle for self-worth and sense of achievement is evident in our protagonists right from the beginning. Each of them, Arasu, Karube, and Chota, are trying to simultaneously find their purpose in life while also simply trying to survive in a world that finds their desires, hopes, and dreams to be meaningless, of having no value in a society that places all value on status. And status they were told they could achieve through hard work, only to find it impossible, non-existent even. Just not something they could ever have. And if you're happy with what you have, which is not what society says is good, then you shouldn't be happy about it. You're wrong. Another character that I want to cover regarding this, like, who they were versus who they've become transition, and kind of like goes into what you were saying, Kat, of like really evaluating if you like why you couldn't do it here. Kind of thing, is Kuina. So Kuina is a badass who honestly stole the whole show for me. I was like enthralled as soon as she was on camera, and I was like, what's her deal? Kuina is out to not just survive the games. She has a long con. She wants to escape. And alongside the incredibly questionable Chishiya, they attempt to steal the cards acquired by the Hatter, which I'll explain in a moment. And they eventually get Arasu involved. She ends up going toe-to-toe with Last Boss towards the end of the series and was like the coolest battle, in my opinion, in this. It's intense and exciting, but the best part is Kuina's flashback, which reveals that she is trans. She's an excellent fighter, and we get to see that she grew up suppressed and judged by her loved ones, and she's forced to fill specific gender roles as expected of her by her father. But unlike the characters in Borderland who needed something like an end-of-the-world scenario to become who they were always meant to be, Kuina had transitioned before the games. Out there in the real world, she was fighting to be who she is and to be accepted for who she is. Without she didn't need that, like the world she lived in was already the end of the world, you know. And so she had already made those changes to be the person that she felt like she was supposed to be. So Kuina is also trans in the manga, which I found really phenomenal. It's not often we get decent trans representation in horror or apocalypse media, including mangas. Like gender representation isn't great. Especially in just like Japanese media, period. And if anything, there's usually commentary about it within the media because they're like, it's wrong here. So when you also look at the oppressive society of Japan and its treatment of those nails that stick out, you come to truly respect the strength and endurance of Kuina. She also completely kicks his ass. She like ruins him. And it's amazing to see this woman like who is so true to herself just destroy a man who's like loosely held up by his interpretation of what power is. He's like, this is what cool men do, and she's like, just like, sure,
sit down.
Like, all right, if that's what cool men do, then cool man failed. So I just had to put that because it's like honestly my favorite part, and I got really excited when that like arc happened. I was like, no way. And then when I heard it was in the manga, I was like, that's it. This is the best thing I've like in a year. So I also want to talk about the beach, which I'll explain what that is, and hedonism, because I think it's really important in covering shows like this to not just highlight the survival response that forces people to hurt those they care about or to slowly become monsters. There's this whole other response to these stresses and the threats of death by ominous sky lasers, and it's the need to live despite all of that. Not just survive, but live. Because that's what this is saying. Like in Squid Game, in Battle Royale, and all of those, it's like you want to live to get out. In Borderland, you're just living to live another day. Like every day is a fight, and it's like I think we can all relate. Or many of us can relate. Arasu experiences some truly awful trauma. Think of the Marbles episode of Squid Game. He has that level of trauma all at once and decides this play to win for only a few extra days lifestyle isn't for him, and he wants to die, which is a reasonable response.
Yeah.
when you're confronted with all of that. And he ends up paired up with this mountaineer, Usagi, who at this time we learn of her life through flashback. And she knows all too well what it feels like to want to give up and to no longer try and to lose ambition or drive and your will to live. Flat out. She had lost that before the games. She had to, like, this is another character that was like, had already figured out their stuff before they got into the games. And so Usagi asks Arasu, do you want to live? Not do you want to survive or like, come with me if you want to live. This is, do you want to live? Flat out.
Yeah.
And it's important to note here that when she asks, it's during their visa time. It's not in the midst of a game where their lives are threatened. It wasn't like, do you want to live? We got to get out of here. It was just like, you're just kind of chilling between time. Do you want to live? And in an article on Salon.com titled Forget the Stand, Alice in Borderland is the wild dystopian ride we've been waiting for by Melanie McFarland. They dive into the strength of Usagi, who is motivated by more than just survival, but instead her pure will to keep on living and her refusal to die. They say, through Usagi's refusal to let Arasu give up, she shows a determination to live within this world as she survives each trial. This may also increase her odds of winning, whatever that means. Watch closely and you may notice that she and other players who clear impossible games and navigate dangerous alliances share a drive to move forward as opposed to being motivated by the chance to return to their old lives. It's kind of like how we have said horror like fans react quicker to trauma and are able to kind of get to the next thing quicker because we process them. It's kind of like that. Like they're not just like, sad, like, I gotta get home, I gotta get out of here. It's like, no, we are here, so we gotta do it. We gotta do what we gotta do now. And we're doing it because we want to live.
Yeah.
We don't want to just survive. And so with the help and motivation of Usagi, Arasu continues his fight to survive and eventually learns of an apocalyptic paradise within the game world known as the beach. Participants live there where they party, do drugs, have sex, and have an overall good time before going out on group excursions to complete games as a team.
Yeah.
Honestly, sounds genius to me. And if I somehow survived literally any of these damn mind or physical games, I'd beeline for the beach. This place is lit. I am here for the beach. Like everyone I know is gone. I don't know if I'm going to live tomorrow. I'm not making any decisions anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just having fun. I don't care. I'm not training. Like, no. This is not happening. So the beach is run by the Hatter. Get it? Because Alice.
Yep.
Who seems to have figured out the bigger picture, or tells people that he's seeking to acquire all the cards to get a full deck. And he believes that any player who acquires the deck will be given the chance to return home. I stress acquire because he doesn't earn them.
Yeah.
Others do, and they give it to him because they're blissed out. And he's the leader, and he doesn't really tell everyone that that's the way. He also kind of alludes that everyone will get to go.
Eventually,
revealed it's just him. And I don't actually, care about that. Like the guards or whatever. It is an important discovery and definitely causes a lot of chaos in the show, but I was like, I don't care. I don't care who's doing it. I don't care what's happening. I just want to talk about the people. So I want to talk about hedonism in the shadow of death. People tend to think fear is the only way to control the masses into subservience. You read 1984 in high school, and it makes sense. It does. Big Brother, thought police, manipulation, neighbors tattling on neighbors, alternative facts, etc. All are very real ways governments and people in power have controlled people. But I think the most accurate and honestly frightening ways to accomplish this is actually by catering to humanity's hedonism. So people like pleasure. In Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, we see that people completely ignore their oppression when they're given a distraction like drugs or good feelings.
Yeah.
They're literally like, you feel good. And they're like, cool. You are happy. And they're like, yeah. so I don't care. And I'd argue that our current society is a wonderful mix of both Orwell and Huxley's proposed futures, where there's, surveillance and oppression and also drugs.
Yeah.
And intense pleasure and social media. It's a big old mix.
Yeah.
And the beach made so much sense to me. When that's what I always feel like we're missing in Apocalypse, is that people totally miss out the fact that people are just going to have a good time when they think the world is going to end.
Well, yeah, you think the first Purge, they were partying instead of murdering.
Yeah, or even I hate to use this as an example, but there was a Rick and Morty episode where they were going to planets that were about to die, the end, and the people were because they were the best parties, because everyone was we don't have any rules, and some really awful, questionable things happened at those parties, to the point where when one of those planets survived the next day, it was very awkward for the people who were still here. But imagine if you didn't have to face the consequences of that party the next day. Then you're gonna party the hardest that you've ever partied.
Party the hardy.
You're gonna party the hardiest. And if you were plopped into an apocalypse where death lingered right outside, in the sky, lasers, and you were forced to play games to survive just a few more days, and for who knows how long and to what end, no answers, wouldn't you desire some reprieve?
Yeah, that's fair.
When there are no rules and we have to fight to survive, people become monsters. Yes. That's true. But we're social creatures that also have simple needs and desires, flat out. And those don't go away because death is here.
That's real.
Trauma manifests in many ways, and indulging in narcotics or sex is one of many ways to escape the horrors outside. We are in the middle of an entire panini press. We are all doing these things.
Yeah.
Every one of us is trying to cope, right? So I was so appreciative of this show, this part of the show specifically, because we don't often spend time in the in-between of murder games.
True.
Usually characters are dropped in and they fight to the end. But what happens when there's no end and this is just the new normal? We don't just murder and resort to anarchy and chaos. We live.
Yeah.
We're being reckless. Sure. We don't know if the people we share our bed with today will be here tomorrow. And we don't know if we'll be here tomorrow. More than is the case now, because we are all actively dying all the time. But I mean, it's incredibly present. There are sky lasers. So I felt that this was the most natural and interesting response to the apocalypse, was just to have a good time. And I would be there. It's if I'm going to be in an apocalypse, this is where I want to be. Yeah. Anyway. The last point I'll make is the ones in charge, or whoever they are, because in the end, there's a jarring discovery. We don't know anything and there are no answers type of discovery, which reveals that there are, in fact, people pulling the strings. But who are they? Yeah. Why are they doing this? How are they doing this? Sky laser technology. What is that? Yeah. And for whom are they doing this? We don't know anything. All we know is that there are villains out there, and they're probably rich, because that's how that works. Yeah. But we already knew that. So the ending is pretty lackluster to me, because I was you just it was the reveal was somebody has been behind this all along, and it was okay, yeah, that's yeah, no one, we knew that didn't just happen. Clearly this was curated. Someone thought of games. Games take work. Yeah, I read the Hunger Games. Yeah, they hired people to do it. Yeah. To set them up. Yeah, exactly. That's not how this works. But I also really appreciated the vague answer of the puppet master, because it's still a good question of who is it who can have this power, and also odds are they don't have the power. Someone else does, right? And I do hope there is a season 2 where we can explore that further. But honestly, who's doing it and why? Probably rich people for kicks or views or more money or status or whatever. Americans. It's that day. It's because it's Tuesday. Is the least interesting part. In the apocalypse, it's never the monsters or situations that are horrifying, but the people who are just trying to live. And each one of us has the potential to be a monster. So we already knew that. So what do we do instead when we're just trying to live the day by day and also survive? Yeah. So it's me in my 20s. Yeah. Just go. I don't know who this person is in the bed. Whatever. Go. Get out.
I also don't know if I'll
You're
be here
dead
tomorrow.
to me tomorrow.
It's
you know?
kind of it's a woo.
It's a toss up.
Yeah, that was me in my early 20s, 1000%. I lived Alice in Borderlands, but without the sky lasers.
yeah.
The lasers were drinking and bad choices.
Same.
Hello.
Same.
We're here.
The gloomiest generation, baby.
Yeah, we already accepted the inevitable demise of ourselves. And in fact, just be like, yeah, all right, cool, that's fine.
Yeah, just figure it out.
We don't have any, like, property. Got nothing tying us down.
All the things that they said were like made you worth something is not available anymore. So what are we, just all worthless? I don't think so. I don't think that works.
Yeah.
So instead, we need to find worth in other things, like drugs and sex. So let's do it. Birds do it.
This is not...
It's not an endorsement
for drugs and sex.
But it's also not an endorsement for drugs.
I think it depends on what drugs, but yes.
And consent, responsibly.
Responsibly and consents. To both, we saw climax, so you also got to consent to the drugs ahead of time. Yeah. Because it's a bad time.
Safe environments.
Mm-hmm.